Obviously, this is quite a controversial topic, so before we start this video, I want to say that I have the utmost respect for any religion, any spiritual practice, any beliefs, and that really this is just my opinion, and you should not take it too seriously. This is just my opinion, my perspective on these different things. The way I think spirituality differs from religion is that religion almost always implies some kind of doctrine, some version of truth or reality that is absolute to the exclusion of everything else. And this is seen very distinctly in the Abrahamic religions, so Christianity, Judaism and Islam. But it's also, this is not just in those religions, it's in most organized religion. You see this idea of a doctrine, a version or a story or a myth or a concept that is seen as the absolute truth, and everything else is seen as, either false, negative, evil, silly, unproven, or just, completely ignored in most cases. But your version, the specific religion's version of the truth is somehow upheld as the only thing that can be true. So that's religion, right? Spirituality, on the other hand, says, I don't know exactly how things work. I've not died and come back to live to tell the story of what happens. I don't know specifically how God or even the devil, or even if these concepts even exist, right? I don't know how these things work. All I know for sure as a spiritual person is that there's something else, whatever you want to call that, right? A higher power, a higher consciousness, source, God, and there are infinite names for God. But I don't know how it works, and I don't really understand how it all fits together at the moment. But all I can say is, I want to be a loving person. I want to help my fellow human beings. We're here probably for a reason. And this, life, this physical body is not all there is. That's really the foundation of spirituality. And then obviously you can build on that and you can start connecting the dots from different places. But really the basis of spirituality is a completely open mind. If you, and to be clear, I'm not saying that all religious minds are closed and limited, but the vast majority of organized doctrines, by definition, a doctrine almost by definition is narrowly focusing on one version of reality and saying that everything else is not true or ignoring it. That seems a very unlikely way of grasping reality. If you think that we are only aware, the current science of today says, right, that we can only perceive 0.005% of the frequencies and information that are out there. A tiny, tiny fraction of a percentage is what we can perceive. So do you really think then that everything you need to know about reality, the cosmos, universe, life itself, is contained not only within that tiny fraction of a percent, but within a fraction of that 1% in the pages of one book, let's say, or one, even the teachings of one person? It seems almost impossible that that's the case, especially, and this is where it really gets interesting, especially when you consider that most organized religions, they don't exist in a vacuum. They all interrelate and interfere with each other in ways you can't even imagine. And if you look even a little bit at the history of these religions, most religions throughout history have massively interfered with each other. They've borrowed concepts, they've renamed gods, they've copied prophecies and copied rituals and symbols and all kinds of things in countless different ways. And this goes right back to the beginning. So knowing that, then it seems very unlikely that any religious text could have survived that is an original source, or that hasn't been influenced by these other things. And even if it did survive, you still have to question, well, where did it come from? What was the situation at the time? Who was influencing or guiding them? So it becomes clear that to really get a picture of what's going on and a grasp on reality, you have to go broad. You have to take each doctrine, each belief, each system with a pinch of salt and try and look at what they have in common. Try and see the good in these different things, and then try and connect them all together. I like to think of it as becoming a dot connector instead of an expert on one dot. And what a lot of religious people do is they'll focus really narrowly on one dot in an ocean of dots. Instead of trying to, grasp the concept of all of these other dots, they'll focus really intensely on one. And often they'll exclude or ignore everything else. This is quite dangerous and limiting, because when you exclude so much, so many other opinions and so much other history, you really limit your understanding to basically people or concepts and sources of information that are just going to repeat the same things to you. It becomes like an echo chamber. So what I really try and do, myself at least, is to go as broad as possible, right? Read a book that compares and analyzes 12 different religions. Then read a book that compares, all of the different forms of Buddhism. And then read an original text from, whatever it is, Christian history. And look at these different things. Like even within the Christian religion, you have things like the Gnostic Gospels, which have been excluded from the canon of the Bible. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why were these specific texts left out and others left in? As well as various other different manipulations and changing of definitions of words and all kinds of different, things have happened historically, that it makes it very unlikely that any one specific religion today contains everything you need to know or contains the whole version of the truth. They might contain part of it, maybe even a big chunk of the truth, but it seems unlikely to me that one religion would be right and hundreds or even thousands of others could be wrong. It's much more likely that each of them, or maybe not even every one, but a lot of them contain a piece of the truth, but not the whole truth. And this becomes even more obvious when you look at the consistent symbols and themes in most of the world's religions that didn't originate with them. They came from somewhere else. And a really common example of this is anything to do with Saturn, Venus, Mars, Orion, and Sirius. And then specifically within that, you have things like the idea of the male and female entities being balanced, duality, polarizing energies, things like fish deities, owl deities. These things, and the snake or the serpent. This is a recurring theme and symbol in so many organized religions, spiritual practices, and historical texts. It seems very unlikely that any one of them is the source of that story, when so many unconnected, even separated by thousands of years, so many practices and disciplines mention the same things in different ways. So yeah, that's my opinion. I think spirituality is or should be about focusing on the broad, big picture. Religion tends to focus in on one stream of truth, or not even stream of truth, or one aspect of reality. Spirituality is about focusing on all of the aspects, or as many as you possibly can to try and grasp the truth. But yeah, obviously controversial topic, I know. So hopefully you haven't annoyed anyone too much, and I'd love to hear what you think.